Hey, Sean here from SpeedCubeReview.com. Every year since I've started, I've done a mega comparison. That was kind of the beginning of this channel. I did that because it didn't really exist. When I started, I bought like 12 or so of the big puzzles out there, and I just made a video because I wanted to enlighten people out there and compare the puzzles to each other and not just, one versus one. Since then, I've gathered a lot more puzzles. I probably have somewhere around 700 at this point. And it's hard to do a comparison with everything. So what I have done lately is gathered the most popular ones and ones that are out currently. So for example, there wouldn't be a reason for me to use my GaN Infinity with my different shades and the X version 1 because there's so many parts of what I just said that are not in production anymore. So we have a handful of puzzles here, and I'm actually missing one. I think it's over here. Here it is. So I'm going to go through a few different companies. Some companies I'm not going to talk about today are YongJun and Shengsho because neither of them have had newer puzzles lately for, I would say, top of the line 3x3s. I'm also going to go into budget ones and mini ones in this, and I'm going to be a little more blunt than I have in the past and just say, get this one and don't get that one. Because there are some things that I feel put it above the rest because of one specific thing. I don't feel like there's any specific puzzle that will give you better times than any other one as far as main puzzles on the market. So with all of that said, let's get into this. And the first thing I have here is YJ. So why am I going through YJ first? Because that's just the first one I grabbed. We have their mainline one, which is the MGC. Some other ones that they have out, they have a mini puzzle as well. So let's scatter these about a bit. Let's talk about these two puzzles. This mini one, it is 50 millimeters, and it already comes magnetized, and it's based a little bit off of their YJ Yulong series. They're newer Yulong. I think they just call them the Yulong version 2. And that's what some of these grooves are like in here. It performs great. And I definitely use this for one-handed, and I use this as a travel one. I've done some solves with it as a main puzzle. However, I think if I was doing a competition, I wouldn't grab this. I'd want something a little bit larger. But for one-handed, it is great. As far as mini puzzles, there's only one other thing that's around 50 millimeters, and it's this one. Now, I've gotten this one with the special coating from SpeedCube Shop, the PVC coating, and I also magnetized this. With it magnetized, it's very similar in performance, and with the PVC coating, it is very grippy, just like the YJ one is. However, with all of that said, this one ends up being a lot more in the end. So if you want a mini puzzle, definitely get this YJ one. The other one I have here is their MGC. The MGC line, this is the third one in it, and this one is the MGC Elite. Now, the version 1 was not bad. It was a kind of different feeling, a little bit larger, bubbly, larger compared to other ones on the market, but only stickered. The version 2 was a bit of a flop. In my opinion, it was a fine puzzle, but a lot of people felt that it caught more than other puzzles did. I didn't have that experience, but I'm not going to convince the rest of the community. This third one set the bar with really catching up to everyone else and adding some things to it. So what it caught up was with their tensioning system. This is very much like MoYu, where you can adjust the springs with this blue part. So it's a little more elastic is what I like to use, springy. So on tighter settings, it snaps back much faster. The other thing is the magnets. You can adjust the magnets with these arrows, and by turning it, you can get a tighter or lighter feeling. And the tight magnets do feel quite tight. Now, it's still an interesting feeling puzzle and not like other ones out there. So it's a little more bubbly, a little more solid feeling. It doesn't feel light and whooshy, if that makes any sense. A lot of the puzzles lately are getting light, and we'll get into that. If you want something that has these adjustable settings that isn't too expensive, which is what MGC line is really nice with, they're good puzzles and not super expensive ones comparatively, it's definitely worth a look. I'm not a big fan of the feeling of it, and I don't know a lot of people who use it above other ones. But if you want something that has all these top line options at a good price, it's definitely one to look at. Now, I'm not going to show the Yulong version 2. It's not a bad puzzle. I actually bought like 12 of them to do multi-blind with. They're good, cheap, magnetic puzzles, but with the size being a bit large than a lot of other ones, being a little more boxy, it feels kind of like an old school feel to it. And every single one I got needed some lubrication on the springs just to get rid of some noise. I feel like I wouldn't recommend it as a budget puzzle. So I'm going to leave these here. This is a definite go-to. The MGC, I'm just going to push off to the side a bit. With that said, I think another one that would be good to go to is DaYan, because DaYan has two things going well for them. They have some budget prices, and they've really caught up to the rest of the market, kind of like YJ did. This one's the DaYan Tengyun version 2. Couple things with this. On the springs, we have adjustment settings. And this one has 3 adjustment settings that includes the screw. So you have the screw, you have a blue part, and you have another blue part. One of them does adjust the elasticity. And the other one is a quick adjustment for tensions. It doubles what the screw does, but as like a more of a quick adjustment. I don't think it's necessary. It's a little excessive. and people have, like, in their videos have to explain what the puzzle can do because it's so much. And as far as magnets, you have 3 settings. This puzzle does work great. It fixes a lot of things people had issues with for the version 1. The version 1 felt a little bit too light of magnets and was very fast. So having these adjustments fixes that. On the downside, it makes it a little bit heavier. Personally, I kind of like to use the version 1 a little bit more because of that lighter feeling. I've gotten used to how that feels. But the version 2 definitely is an upgrade with all of those the issues that people had with the version 1. So the only downside is it's a little bit heavier, but it works great. It can be really stable. And one thing to note, the last competition I was at, I believe the most common puzzle was the DaYan Tengyun. Of all of the ones out there, that I think was the most popular one because of the price and the quality of it. So this is definitely, if it was between this and the MGC, I'd probably say get the DaYan just as far as performance and just overall feeling of it. The other puzzle they have is their more budget line, which is the Guhong. They had the Guhong version 3, which is a good puzzle and 54 millimeters, so a small size. And then they came out with the version 4. I'm not going to show the version 3 because I feel like it's not going to really be produced when they start making this version 4. And it works great. It doesn't have anything super crazy going for it. It works. It doesn't have any spring adjustment settings besides the screws, doesn't have any magnet adjustment settings, and it just works well out of the box. It's not anything special, but it's not bad in any way. That's kind of all I can say about it. It's a little bit hollow feeling. So it definitely feels like there's not a lot of plastic in here being connecting the pieces. And it is very light. It's one of the lightest ones out there. So that would be one of the benefits of it. So as a budget puzzle, I'll put this over here. It's not one of my top picks, but it definitely isn't a bad puzzle at all. And I could see some people using it as a main if they want that really light feeling. The next one, let's talk about MoYu. That's sort of the big competitor here. No, wait, this is QiYi. So let's talk about QiYi, because I got some of these out anyways. They've got the MS, they have the Thunderclap version 3, and they have the Volk Elite. Now, these are all, and I'm going to say older compared to some of the other companies. They came out, I believe, not even just early this year, I believe last year, but they've stuck around as good quality puzzles. So let's talk about the budget ones first. Both of these are their budget line, and they feel very different. The MS is a little bit bigger and has a little bit more stable feeling to it. The Thunderclap version 3 feels like, I would say, a Volk Power. It's a little bit smaller, a little more compact, a little bit faster, and just feels more top tier even with that budget price. I really love the Thunderclap version 3. I definitely consider it as one of the top puzzles on the market that just doesn't get much attention. It doesn't have really anything else besides, again, the screws and the magnets. Nothing can really adjust there. It has the conical springs, which are really popular with the Volk, and even before that, the GAN 357. And so that does seem to give it a little bit more stable feeling with those centers. So between these two, I would recommend, for a budget one, the Thunderclap version 3, and I would put it above the Guhong as far as ones that I would prefer to use. Their top tier ones would be the Volk Elite M. And what's really big with this is the centers have adjustable magnets. So if I take this cap off, you can see the magnets right here. And it's a really easy way to switch these magnets out. You just switch the caps. And you would switch all of them depending on what color you want. And so instead of having 48 magnets, there are 96 magnets in here. And that gives it a very stable feeling. You can add the caps that don't have any magnets in it at all, which will give it a 48 magnet feel. But this cube probably has the most stable feeling of all of them. It doesn't feel blocky. It doesn't feel clunky. The pieces have so much contact with each other that it wants to stay in this cubic shape. Like, it doesn't want to deform like other ones can and stay deformed. It always wants to go back to this shape. So it's a really nice stable feeling cube. I like a little more flexible puzzles, but I tend to go back to this when I want something that just feels comfortable and I can turn a little bit slower and just feel like everything's going to connect and work well. So the Volk Elite M is a really big choice that I think sometimes gets looked over because it came out quite a bit ago compared to some of the other ones on the market right now. So I'm definitely going to put it next to this DaYan one. Okay, so let's talk about MoYu. So MoYu has two budget ones and the top tier one. The two budget ones are the Meilong and the RS3 2020. The Meilong is a very light puzzle, and it has sort of a matte finish, but it's very light. They came out with their regular one, then they came out with a magnetic one, and it's a great puzzle. If you want a light puzzle, I almost would say get this over the Guhong just for feeling. It's a little more compact feeling. I believe the size is the exact same, but it just feels with a little more rounded edges. It doesn't feel as squared off, and it feels really nice. But if you're going to get a budget puzzle, there's something really special about the RS3 2020, and that is that you have the adjustable spring compression, which really does a great job of allowing you to fine tune the feeling of it. It's a really nice, smooth puzzle. Now, just like how I talked about with the Yulong, this one does have a lot of spring noise. I don't think I've seen one out of the box that doesn't have at least a little bit of spring noise. So just know that you'll either have to deal with that or you can lubricate it and fix it. But of all of the budget puzzles, in my budget comparison I did last year, this was the one that came out on top because of that extra detail with the spring compression. And it's such a good one that it's actually the one that I'm using as my creator cube with Speedcube Shop, and that's why I've got my logo here. So you can get a special edition one that's this. Besides lubrication, the other adjustment I made with this is magnets. This one doesn't have any more just 48 magnets, it has 72. So if we take off the edges, we can see there's extra magnets in there. With the 72 magnets, it adds a little more stability onto it. So it's a good budget puzzle, but if you want an even nicer one, you can get that Creator Cube, but I would say it's no longer a budget puzzle at that point. Their top of the line one is the WRM. And this WRM 2020, it's a little bit more compact. So instead of 56, I believe it's 55.5. It's a little more rounded feeling, and it just flows. It works so smoothly. It has the spring compression. This is my favorite one to always go back to. Of all the puzzles here, the WRM 2020 is the one I go back to constantly. And when I feel just like my fingers aren't working well, I'll go to this one more than any other one just by how nicely it flows. It's a great size. It works great for Ru and CFOP. It just works so well. Well, now let me solve this. So as far as budget ones, I'm going to push the Meilong here, but then the WRM right there in the largest view for the budget ones. And as far as top tier ones, let's move this over here. We'll talk about these once more at the very end. And lastly, we have GAN. We have their top tier one, which is the 11M Pro. We have their budget one, which is the Monster Go, and we have their mini, which is the 354. It's the same size as a Guhong version 3. It's a little bit more, I would say, controllable. The one thing with these puzzles, the budget one and the 354, is that there's only 2 adjustment settings. There are other puzzles that GaN makes, but these are the major ones. And when I say 2 adjustment settings, I mean that you have 0.6 and 0.8. 0.6 is tighter, 0.8 is looser. And it's usually tight enough. I rarely get a corner twist with it. And it's tight enough where someone who likes tighter puzzles, I'm usually okay with it. I do wish it had the adjustment settings. So if you look at the old XV1, it was just a screw and you could make it as tight or as loose as you want. But with the new one, you don't have that. On the plus side, your screws won't loosen on their own, but I've never had that issue in any of my puzzles. And it's an easy fix if that does happen. I will not recommend the Monster Go. I do think it's a great GaN puzzle. Honestly, I think it's one of the best GaN puzzles out recently. However, it's still like $20, and compared to something like this, which is under $10, it wouldn't be worth it to spend double the amount for something that doesn't give you as many options. The 354 was something I used a lot, and they actually still have some sticker residue from FMC. I still like to use it. When I feel like I want something smaller, I will go to this, and it's not too small where it's a 50mm puzzle. I will still go to it, but it again doesn't have as many options. You're not able to adjust the magnets. You're not able to adjust the spring compression too much. But if you feel like 56 or 55.5 is too large and you don't want 50mm, it's probably the best one out there at that size range. Their GaN 11M Pro. This is the big one. This is the one that costs more than any other puzzle. It comes in different finishes. This was the frosted plastic, which has glossed up a bit. I've made one with the soft plastic. Is it worth it? Maybe. It's a good puzzle. Some of the features of this is it's super light. It turns very fast. It can be more controllable too. There's magnet adjustment settings in the corners and the core. So there's extra magnets there, which kind of act as center magnets. And as far as adjustment settings, you've got 4 blue settings here for the tension, and then like 5 or so adjustment settings on the clear part. It's hard to tell with that because they tend to adjust at different amounts. So I don't always get the same amount of clicks on each of those. And I'm not a big fan of this tensioning system. It's unnecessarily complicated compared to at least what they used to do. I can get good times with this. It's not, there's nothing bad about it, but it's so expensive. It's something that you're not going to get better times on this compared to the WRM. However, for some people, they really want that feeling that they're getting a really high quality puzzle, and they will practice more and do more with it when they pay an extra amount, and they just really want that feeling. As a quick overview, if you want a mini puzzle for travel or just one-handed or something really small, the YJ1 is best. So there's that one. If you want a budget one, something under $10, the RS3 2020 would be the one to get. And if you want something mid-range, maybe between the $20 and $30 range, I would say get the DaYan version 2. It has a lot of settings, and you can do everything that you can in a top-tier puzzle. It's a little bit heavier than some of the other ones, but some people really like that heavy feeling. I sometimes do like a heavier puzzle, which is why I do like the GaN X more than the XS or the 11. And if you want a top-tier puzzle, it's going to be hard to really say which one is best between all of these. However, if I'm going to say which one I reach for more than any others, it's going to be the MoYu WRM. That's the one that I go to most. It's not a $60 price tag, and the magnets are not adjustable. However, I really like the feeling, and I find the slightly smaller size, the light turning, all just works super well. It's such a great design, and it really works. Let me put these actually in frame. So those will be my main picks for 2021. Of course, more things will be coming out in the future, but these are my main picks for mini, budget, mid-tier, and pro tier. You might consider this as a pro tier. You might consider this as mid tier because of the price, but in this range, that's what I'm calling them. So you can call me out in the comment section. Thank you very much for watching. Please leave your thoughts and questions in the comment section below. Hit like, subscribe for more content like this in the future, and as always, stop by speedqview.com for more news and reviews.